Okay, so welcome everybody. This is our April meeting of Public Health and Safety. And we're going to move through our agenda in the order posted. So we could start with the EAC recommendations. And I mean, the one item here is that they have produced a new flyer to encourage residents to switch to renewable electricity through PECO. This is something the EAC endorses. The council has endorsed, of course, through our Ready for 100 resolution. So here's Bob. Welcome, Bob. We're just starting. So this is something that the EAC would like to have printed, and then they plan to distribute actually door to door rather than go through the mail. So if as a committee we can give the green light, then I would ask the EAC could work on that with the office. Is that sound good, Mona and Bob?
Where's Bob? Oh, it's Bob. Bob's on.
Yeah, Bob's here with us.
Give me 1 sec. I'm just skimming through. It sounds good, but I'm just skimming through it really quickly.
Yeah, I know this was kind of a last minute email. But what they're trying to do is just make it really clear how to switch your electric supplier. And then there's a way for residents to email once they've made the switch so that the EAC can track.
Yeah, it looks good. I think that it's 100% in line with our climate action plan, and I appreciate that they did that. So as long as, so it would just be that they would be printing it, we'd be reimbursing them with a receipt. Is that it? What's the?
Yeah, Matt, what would you prefer if this is something they want to try to do this month?
I don't know what we're talking about.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry, Matt.
Do you want me to forward the email to Matt? It looks like you didn't.
Yes.
I'll forward it to Matt right now.
Thank you, Mona. This is a flyer that the EAC just put together that they would like to distribute to neighbors. And it just outlines how to switch your electricity. What you did for the borough, Matt. It's telling residents how to do it for their, for their household.
Okay, and what would be the expected participation from the borough staff side?
All we need is a bit of money to print the flyers.
Yep.
And that could come from our, $10,000 climate action budget line.
Yeah, and the process for that works the best is for the expense to be paid and then just submit it as a reimbursable. And then we'll just cut that check that week that we get it.
Okay. Okay, great.
And just checking, Matt, did the process for the reimbursement of the mailer that went out about the recycling, did that go okay for the office?
I don't believe I've seen it submitted yet.
Okay.
I believe that was going to come from Barbara, right?
Yeah, from the Narberth Civic Association.
Yeah, I believe it's in place. I just have not seen the request for reimbursement submitted as of yet.
And I guess, Rob, I just feel as long as it's not encumbrance on the borough administration, that, like the council already put in the 2021 budget monies for these kinds of informational mailings, that I think they're wonderful, and I really appreciate that the Civic Association, in the case of the mailer about recycling, and the EAC in this instance is helping get the word out. It just seems like really in alignment with our goals.
Yeah, it's a lot of work that's gone into, doing the research, putting this information together. And so my thanks to the EAC, CAN, and Civic on these different mailers. Okay, well, thank you all. So the I guess while we're on the EAC, Matt, would you like to speak at all to the new station, the charging station?
Yeah, so I don't know if you've had a chance to swing by the Borough building yet, but one of them has been installed. It's not connected yet, so baby steps, but it is installed. We're waiting on Pico to connect it to a meter. Don't get me started on the Pico metering thing, but and once that happens, then we'll be able to program it. And then there will be a learning curve. I'm not quite sure who the person is going to be, who's going to manage the system itself. We've got a little bit of time yet because the second one is scheduled to be installed by the end of next week. And that's the one that's going to be on Forest Avenue. So yeah, if you want to swing by and take a look at it, it's not working yet, so don't plug anything into it because you're not going to get anything out of it. But it looks pretty good. It's back in the municipal parking lot at 100 Conway by the community garden next to the library. It's back there next to that pole, so you should go check it out.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Matt.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's
Really-
progress.
You've really been helping us move towards LED streetlights and electrical cars. These
If it wasn't for COVID,
our infrastructure initiatives.
yeah, if it wasn't for the blasted COVID, then we'd have LED streetlights already. So that was the it set us behind a year. And if I can talk about that while we're on that subject, the PUC cashed our check, so that's a good sign. That I believe that means our application has been at least seen by the PUC. I don't anticipate anything being held up at this point, since the previous iteration, they said we were being overcharged. So I think this is in response to that. So I don't see any issue with that. Once we get the blessing from PUC, then Pico will sign off on it. And we've already cut the check to them for purchasing the streetlights. And then our streetlight consultant and contractors are ready to go and put the order in as soon as it comes through from Pico. So I do believe, I was hoping to get it done before I leave the 23rd. I don't think, we might have word from Pico by then, but I have been in contact with our consultant and DVRPC, and they are still ready to go, hopefully this spring, early summer with the swap.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Matt. I mean, and then we'll be in a position to measure the savings, the carbon reduction through the ICLEI software. So that's exciting too.
Yeah. Speaking of the ICLEI software, thank you. I'm doing some free jazz here. The ICLEI software, you approved the another year's worth. Who should I contact to get that set up? I can't find any logins on my end. Should I go through Jesse in the EAC?
Yeah, let's go to Jesse. And if Jesse may connect you to Joe Toscano, because Joe Toscano was really the point person.
Okay, and I have his email too, so I'll maybe email Joe and CC Jesse on that.
Okay, good.
Going, I want that all squared away too.
Great. Okay, so moving along, we don't have any more news on the shade tree front. We're waiting to work through some of that, some of those proposed ordinance changes. So we're going to wait on that. The one suggestion we had made last time, and Ed Harmon knows about this, was to include the option of tree planting in the use and occupancy process. So that's something that, could be handled in-house. So I think Ed can handle that piece of it, right, Matt? Like during the transition?
Yeah, it's gonna mean a slight change to the process for our use and occupancy applications. It means we have to update that application, which means some graphic design work.
Oh, okay.
a little bit of workflow, and then what does that mean, and what types of materials are we going to also include with the issuance of the UNO. And I do believe that Ed is a good resource for that.
Okay. So the next item we have is price crossing. So I know there've been some developments. I mean, this bollard continues to vex us, you know. So I think the bollard was reinstalled, and now it appears maybe a FedEx crush plowed through, a truck plowed through it. So the bollard is a problem. And I have heard from Evan Baum, who's with us, and from neighbors as well. So, Matt, do you want to say anything first, or should I go? I just want to hear a little from Evan about the situation.
Sure. I just would like just take a minute to just thank Evan for being so patient and cooperative throughout this whole process. And it's been a learning experience for all of us. And I believe that, it's easy to come up with solutions when you have rational people to talk to. And I really appreciate that. And because this is a unique situation for the borough administration. So again, I can't say it enough. Thank you for your patience. I don't think anything that we've been dealing with is a deal breaker at all. I think we're both learning. Now that the bollard keeps getting smacked off, we're going to have to rethink that idea. I'm going to, if I can segue also, because the next two things are kind of related.
Mm-hmm.
Loop in the road sign review process. I know Mr. Baum had also asked about the movement of two no outlet signs, which I agree with. And this is, again, I forwarded that to the borough's traffic engineer. This is the recurring the recurring issue of requests for signs. Traffic engineer was scheduled to present at the infrastructure meeting earlier. What is this? Later last month. The days are all blending in together. It was the end of March. He was unable to attend that meeting. However, I forwarded him Mr. Baum's request, and I explained to him that the road sign review process is a requirement at this time, and asked him to come prepared to have a fully vetted discussion at the next infrastructure meeting in April about this process. It's not just what should it be. I want him to come prepared with a pretty much an almost done deal outline of what that process should be. I don't think it's going to take a long time. I don't expect it to be a big deal, but I do want the process. I think it's important to have that process so that staff can point to it, and then we can help manage expectations from residents' standpoint of, okay, this is what we requested. Here is the process. This is where it's at, and it will help administration manage that process more effectively. So 2 in 1, Mr. Baum. We got a 2-for-1 special tonight. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else.
Yeah, go ahead, Evan, if you would like to speak.
Sure, I appreciate it, and thanks again. I'm sure you're getting sick of me and this topic by now. Yeah, so it wasn't actually run over by the FedEx truck. One of our residents observed the FedEx driver forcibly rip it from the ground. So we filed a police report. We're, as far as I know, still waiting on Narberth PD to let us know what the outcome of that report, if any, will be with the FedEx driver. I still see him driving around, so he hasn't been fired yet, which would be a reasonable solution in my mind. But that aside, the physical mechanism is such that someone who's compelled enough to just forcibly remove it can do so. Wouldn't think that there are that many people around Narberth who would do so with private property, but such as the situation we're in. So even if and it's completely broken, so it would need to be, a new one would need to be purchased and reinstalled.
Mm-hmm.
We can do all of that, hopefully at FedEx's expense after the police department does its thing. I would just question whether it's not going to continue to persist as an issue. So
yeah, that is, just as a public safety issue, while you're here with us, Evan, I just wanted to return to the idea I think you had floated of an alternative to the bollard, like a chain or something, that's used at the back end of Narberth Park. So is that a solution that you favor? I mean, I'm not sure what the solution is, and maybe we would have to involve, the professional opinion of, I don't know if the traffic engineer would need to be involved, but yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Hi, Rob. Thank you, Rob. And Evan, I just want to say that I know that you feel you've taken a lot of our time, but I mean, on the positive side, we've gotten to meet the representative of one of our newest associations, the Homeowners Association. It's really been a pleasure to work with you, even though this has been a difficult issue. I really think you represent your part of Narberth really well. And I really appreciate how reasonable you've been about this whole matter, and like I know that we'll find a way, a resolution in some way or another. But with that said, I just wanted to go back, like kind of the history in my mind is a little sketchy, but I do recall that when the developer proposed the homes for price cost crossing, they were done under the old zoning ordinance, and they required the submission of a special, not a special exception, but a conditional use application. And there were a lot of issues around that development that were discussed, talked through with our solicitor and with the planning commission, and recommendations were made to council, and council approved some of them and discussed them and so forth and so on. And one of the issues that arose during that long negotiation was that curb cut onto Conway, and where the bollard currently blocks the entrance and the egress from the Price crossing. And the purpose of that bollard was to prevent the everyday vehicular use of the curb cut and of the driveway. And in 2020 hindsight, I kind of wonder, well, why didn't anyone, either the developer or the neighbors or the planning commission or the council, suggest that just simply be maintained as a pedestrian, kind of a pedestrian access, or a pedestrian, it's an easement really, I guess. And that it be treated as such through some kind of differentiated paving, or maybe, I gather people didn't want to eliminate the curb cut because they felt that the access would be needed by emergency vehicles. But I don't know that if an assessment was ever made by the fire department that it was necessary for the purposes of like public, life safety or not. But I guess I'm sort of going on at length about this because I'm wondering, how would you and how would the homeowners association feel about the possibility of the elimination of to explore the possibility of eliminating the curb cut and simply have it be a pedestrian access, a trail basically that connects for bicyclists and pedestrians Conway with the Price, with the cul-de-sac on Price.
Truthfully, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I think many of the residents, since the entire length of the driveway is, to my understanding, private property, wouldn't want to do anything that would actually encourage it to be seen as a pedestrian throughway, because in our opinion, it isn't. But again, if there's another solution that doesn't require us to be consistently, replacing physical hardware to have it serve its purpose,
You'd rather it be perceived as a vehicular throughway?
I don't have an opinion one way or the other.
I guess I was thinking if it's a pedestrian ingress and egress, it's more or less a walkway just for the residents who live there, which is sort of no different than say any other sidewalk that goes from a public space to a private space. But that's the thought, was like, why not just recharacterize it as a sidewalk or as a trail that's just private.
Well,
for public ingress and egress.
For now, Republic needs to use it, right? I mean, until we renegotiate the contract. Because we didn't pay for a smaller trash truck.
Oh, just the trash. Oh, Republic. Oh, I thought you said the public. You meant Republic. I misheard. Republic, the trash. Yeah. So for now, but I mean, but that would give the homeowners association and the borough time to redesign what it would be in the future.
Mhm.
And I would think that it could be like a much nicer thing for the residents of the development and the neighbors than a roadway.
Mhm.
I wasn't at the last council meeting, but to my knowledge, the council hasn't agreed to say that we would negotiate to pay more money for a smaller trash truck, have we? Is that a decision made by council?
No, that hasn't been decided. I mean, it's just,
It's not an issue at this time.
yeah, because we're waiting for the contract to come up for renewal. But, at this point, we're locked into the contract we do have, and the trucks, need to use that exit. So Matt,
I'd like to explore that more with, I mean, I would be curious, Evan, if you would explore that more with your homeowners association, because I suspect that the council and the public would be amenable to the recharacterization of that easement, as long as it didn't impose any kind of hardship on your homeowners association, like in terms of being less accessible to the fire department, which, I think you'd have to ask them.
The two other suggestions that other owners had proposed, one would have been installing some sort of speed bump or speed hump along the drive to mitigate sort of the velocity of traffic coming through. Again, different solution. The other, instead of installing a bollard, would just be to install a gate, right? Something that could still lock, but would be much more permanent, visible, and not as easily destroyed. Different form and function for sure, but if the intent is to really have it locked off and not be for vehicular traffic in any way, shape, or form, personally, I think it would be more of an expense to, Bob, as you suggested, sort of redesign the space versus just installing, an iron gate that locks, that we could still give the keys to a Republic for. But
okay, and at this point, I mean, so who has the keys? I mean, the Republic has the keys, but I assume the fire department also.
correct, yeah. I passed along keys to Ed Harmon in the Dropbox maybe 10 days ago.
Yep.
And then the association, we have a set of keys as well.
Okay.
Just a point of view, Evan, is that, there will be expense associated with the maintenance of the macadam, of the curb cut, the gate, the whole entire, roadway. If you do intend to keep it over time, that will be an expense. So if you did, if you were just to eliminate it, you wouldn't have any of that. Just be part of your landscape. So just a thought.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess we would want the feedback of the fire department or public safety to let us know that could be feasible. We have a couple of doctors who live on the property who are already pretty concerned about not being able to get in and out when there's snow through that entrance. But again, an ancillary concern, because the other entrance to the drive is pretty steep.
It was never oh, I see, because it's steep, but it was never intended to be an ingress and an egress for the residents.
Sure. Yeah.
That's not happening. That's never going to happen. Yeah. So they should know that. That's
Yep.
Yeah.
I personally understand completely.
Okay.
Okay. So what do you think, Matt, at this point? I mean, we'll just, I guess what I'm thinking is, do we want the homeowners association to just reinstall the bollard? It seems like this will keep happening. I guess previously I was thinking the decision point is the next trash contract. negotiation, that we had time until then to figure this out. But now I'm thinking maybe we should come to some solution sooner, but I don't know. What is your thought, Matt?
Well, the bollard is what's a part of the plan. And so that is our guiding document, right? So that's technically what has to be installed. Any updates or changes to that plan must be then reviewed and approved by council, since it's a change to the subdivision land development final plan submission. Any of those, technically speaking, the bollard should be replaced. I would encourage you to continue to document how the bollard is used and or misused, and maybe encourage you to put up one of those cheap cameras that are readily available to document who smacks it down the next time, just for your own detective work. And that then will give you even more proof as to why it's not working, which will then enable us to better review it and come up with a better solution. So I don't see a short-term solution other than reinstalling the bollard, since that's what's on that plan. And that's why we brought the change to the plan to council, because it was different, because the bollard was supposed to be up there permanently. And we made that exception for the trash trucks. That's my take.
Okay.
I know it's inconvenient and it's not necessarily what you want to hear yet, but I say all of that to say, I think what I'm hearing from this committee, that this committee would be interested in hearing any other creative solutions, that we would entertain them. Meaning, if this committee entertains them and thinks that it's a viable solution, it would then be forwarded to council to be approved, because it's going to have to be that update to that final plan submission.
Okay. All right. Well, Evan, I would ask if you could do us the favor of I guess following our manager's suggestion, and then please stay in touch and feel free to bring to us any, if your association favors one solution over another, please bring that to us, and then we can bring that to the council, and we would go through that process of approval.
Okay. We are going to have to buy a new one. And for whatever reason, the builder bought a piece of hardware that comes from British Columbia in Canada. So it's going to be a while, to be honest, before a new one arrives and can be installed. We may also have to have the concrete into which it is installed redone, because of the nature of how the FedEx driver tore it out. So it could be a couple months. I can't assure you that it will happen anytime soon.
Can you read back what it is, like a different product, so that's maybe easier to find? Or like that the borough engineer doesn't care, do they? As long as it's a bollard, do they, Matt?
Well, all I know is the one that was installed meets the exact specifications on the plan. So
I wonder if there's an alternative that you could use that would be easier for you to, and maybe less expensive for you to install or something.
Yeah, I believe the plans would say bollard. So, I'm not gonna split hairs on whether or not that was the approved bollard that was blessed. But as long as it's a bollard and it's functional, I think that would meet the standards.
okay, well, we'll look into it, but again, even if we found an alternative, it will still probably be a while. So we appreciate your patience. And
well, there are other designs too, like that, some that don't necessarily fold down, but that actually just are like pins that like seat into a deep hole, and then they come out, and like, so that they don't, they don't break, like they're not, it's just a simpler thing. And well, good luck.
Yeah, and in the meantime, like I say, if you see a solution that you think really could work, please bring it back to us. You can email me directly, or and I can share it with the committee.
Appreciate it.
We can move it through.
Will do. Appreciate
Okay.
it. And thanks, Matt, for following up about the road sign. It's just where it is, you can't actually see it when you make the turn. So
Agreed. Yep.
Mhm.
Thank you. I'm sure it sounds like there are other signs that folks have concerns with in other parts of the borough as well. So thanks for your efforts on that too. Not just for our sign, but for the others.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Evan. Okay, so the road sign review process, Matt outlined, so that's going to be happening under infrastructure later this month, it sounds like, Matt, right? That's when the traffic engineer will come. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so, you know, just to note, I mean, as a committee, we have received many emails about road signs, not just on Sabine, but also East Wynwood, which is a very difficult road, of course, because it's a border road. We've also received emails about snow route signs, you know, so there are many different kinds of signs, you know, emails that we're getting. And so the idea would be to do a kind of comprehensive review. And so we'll look to the traffic engineer for that guidance later in the month.
I should publish my Signs of Narberth map that I created with all of the sign data that we collected several years ago. I call it
That
the
would actually be, Matt, that would be awesome if you could either publish it or send it to, or, you know, send it around to all of us, because I know that you did a lot of work mapping the signage, and
Yep.
it's a really good sort of database, actually.
I call it the sign bomb map. Like a sign bomb blew up.
I think at some point in time in the past, you said that we needed to go on a sign diet, which I think is a good idea.
Yes, I am typically sign averse, and every time I hear suggestions for more signs as a solution, it's just aesthetically too cluttering. And from a communication standpoint, with the more signs you have, the less communicative signs become.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fan of less is more.
It brings something up, Rob, that I just wanted to add anecdotally, since we're talking about this, that I started to ask residents and even shopkeepers who live or work on some of the one-way streets in our borough about people going the wrong way. I guess this was occasioned because I witnessed several people going the wrong way on the 100 block of North Narberth Avenue about 3 months ago. So I asked someone who works on the 100 block of North Narberth Avenue if they see that very often. And they indeed said, oh, that happens all the time. I see it happen 6, 7 times a day. And I said, oh, really? People go the wrong way on the 100 block of North Narberth Avenue 6 or 7 times a day? And they said, yes. And I said, how could you possibly miss the one-way signs at the traffic light, or it's so obvious to me that it's a one-way road. So they said, oh, no, it happens all the time. So then I asked someone on Conway, who lives on Conway near the firehouse, and they said, oh, indeed, this happens 6, 7 times a day. Somebody goes the wrong way on Conway every single day. And I thought, wow, like if you're looking out your window, if you live on a one-way street and you're actually looking out your window, you might actually see people going the wrong way on one-way streets all the time. But I had no idea until I started asking people who lived and worked on one-way streets. So I wonder if traffic engineers have any data about that kind of thing, because there must be some kind of unacceptable limit. There must be some kind of acceptable threshold and some kind of unacceptable threshold. Like if it's 6 or 7 is the mean for a day on a town like of our size in the wrong way, of cars going the wrong way on a one-way street, well, then maybe we have to say, well, there's some threshold that's acceptable. But if it's 15 cars is way too many, then there's something we need to do about it. So I don't know, maybe the police chief has data on that too, but you see what I'm driving at. It's like, and maybe the traffic engineers can help us with that. But I've been asking and curious about this, and that we do have quite a few one-way streets, and it turns out that it's pretty commonplace. And anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, Rob. And
Yeah, that's helpful context. I hadn't realized that. Okay, so let's just keep going. We're going next to, looks like 114 Forest Ave contractor parking, and then after that we could come to the chief. who has an update on the MOU. Okay, so Matt, go ahead.
Great, thanks, Rob. I just wanted to update the committee on what the borough has been doing to help alleviate some of the parking congestion as a result of the 114 Forest Ave construction project. This was, if you remember, last month, we had a resident along the 200 block of Forest Ave who expressed concern about contractor parking. And so, you know, the borough takes these sorts of complaints very seriously, and we have been meeting with the contractor and trying to alleviate some of this congestion. And so we have designed and deployed a first approach. We thought we would go not from an enforcement aspect first. We didn't want to go heavy-handed. We're going to go suggestion. And we designed, thanks to Michelle Carroll for designing some snazzy signs to help move contractor parking to available spaces that is not along residential areas. Today I saw maybe 2 trucks parking, taking the parking spaces down by the municipal building. We have, it's kind of like a detour route. If you're coming down Windsor Ave, where the contractors are about to take a left on Forest Ave, you'll see a sign that says 114 contractor parking this way. And then you keep going down Forest Ave and it keeps pointing you down to Haverford. And then there's another arrow that points you down Haverford. You keep following that detour down to the municipal building. And then we have about 5 or 6 signs that says contractor parking only. We're trying this approach and we're reinforcing this with our weekly contractor meeting that we have every Friday to get the contractors to move many of their vehicles down to this area. The challenge is going to become when the contractors need their vehicle for equipment. It works when it's a contractor that might just be, someone who's there as hired help to do a part that they don't have tools that they have to keep going back to or equipment to go back to in their truck. But if we can alleviate some of that, we're taking that approach and we're continuing to monitor it. And it might come to the point where we might have to ratchet it up. And I know Chief Gallagher has been involved in this also, just continuing to communicate to the contractor to try to reinforce to the subcontractors where the available parking is. So phase 1, I don't think it's a solution that's 100% effective yet. We still need to continue to communicate that to the contractors, and we might need to tweak it a little more also and get a little more enforcement on the 200 block. But we're continuing to monitor that. I just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention since that came up at the last meeting with Mr. Markman, I believe his name was, who was expressing concern about contractor parking on the 200 block of Forest.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Go ahead, Andrea.
If I may, I go through there all day, every day, and I'm right there. I have noticed a little bit less parking on the 200 block from Forest when I go to work in the morning. It seems a little lighter than it's been, so that's good. At some point, do you think the contractors will be able to park on the premises in the parking garage?
That's a good question. That's something that I can bring up at the weekly contractor meeting.
Because once they can do that, that's going to alleviate everything. And I would maintain that contractor parking down there because we're looking at 2 other projects down on Haverford Avenue, and we want to keep those trucks out of the business district.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can make room down, where nobody's parked before, where we can line them up, that would be terrific. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point,
Are
Andrea.
those projects starting soon, Andrea?
I've not heard a timeline, but I have noticed they've removed the paintings from the Ricklands property.
So 100 Forest and 203 Haverford, the old Ricklands building, same developer, same contractors. They have submitted permits. The permits have not been accepted since the final land development hasn't been approved yet and hasn't been submitted. So we're in a holding pattern. However, it's imminent. It's coming. So it's going to be weeks, not months. So this is another thing that we were using as a test case for contractor parking to see how we could manage the Forest Avenue issue, with the understanding that we'll just use some white duct tape and just tape over 114 Forest, and then it becomes contractor parking once 100 Forest and 203 Haverford come online.
Mhm.
My thoughts are, once they get to a certain point and the underground parking is established, why not use that? Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
for them,
that's-
it's easy. For us, it works out for everything.
yeah, that's good. Okay, so Matt, thank you. Thank you for bringing that to your weekly meeting. So, okay, I have my eye on the clock. We want to have some time with the chief to discuss the MOU with Lower Merion. And then after that, we really need to at least begin a discussion about the signs in the park. I'm especially thinking signs reminding people of our mask ordinance. There seems to be a need for these signs in the parks. So could we start with the chief on the MOU?
Sure. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate the time. As you know, the last time that we met as a committee was on March the 3rd, Wednesday. The following day on March the 4th, myself and Mike McGrath met extensively with Captain Thomas about the cooperation agreement as it's in progress. So there were very few edits that we really wanted coming out of that meeting. It was basically some minor stuff, nothing really to change the spirit or the parameters of the cooperation agreement itself. But the one thing that's going to be important as we move forward is number one, we want to get this signed before Matt West departs on Friday, April 23rd, because we want this in place for 5 years. And in addition to that, Matt has been a true partner with myself and the mayor regarding this project. So we would like to have his endorsement on that as a, kind of as a parting trophy. But back to the MOU itself. The one thing I would like to talk about is the one area that they're going to hang their hat on is on page 5. It's under section 7, operational support, paragraph C. You'll see at the bottom it says if NPD personnel service level changes cause significantly increased coverage commitments by Lower Merion in order to cover the borough, the fee agreement will be amended to provide appropriate remuneration to the township for the cost of these additional services as prescribed. So that's the area that they're going to kind of hang their hat on. Now, the one thing to take into consideration, and we mentioned this before, is that this MOU has been changed significantly, versus that of old versions. Number one, we don't use their investigative services as much as we used to. And myself and Matt are actually looking historically at the hours of coverage throughout the past 3 years to see if there's an increase, because as you can see by some of the things that I just quoted, that's where they'll focus in on. So one of the studies I did as an example, just for the committee's benefit, is if you look at the first quarter of 2021 versus that of 2020 and 2019, there is really not that much of a significant increase. I'll give you an example. For instance, 2021 versus 2020 first quarter, January, February, March, we were actually down by 31 hours of coverage provided by Lower Merion. If you look at 2019 versus 2020, we're up about 35 hours. So I don't really see a significant change in coverage there. However, what we will have to take a deeper look in 2020 are the months during the summer. From March 27th in particular, when we had an officer go off injured as a result of an off-duty injury, as well as another officer who was off injured for a duty-related injury. I can't really go into specifics, obviously, on a public forum. But however, that created a lot of coverage last summer. So the one thing that we're going to have to look at is the summer months on the past 3 years. Before I got here, these records were really not tracked for the benefit of the borough, only the benefit of Lower Merion according to the records. But when I got here, I keep what's known as a Lower Merion PD coverage calendar, monthly Excel spreadsheet for each individual month since my arrival here in 2018. So that's 3 years ago. So I have all the records. So if they come back and they offer contest, I can clearly offer, refute to say, no, this is what we covered. Myself and Superintendent McGrath agreed on many, many things in terms of this agreement. And that's why we have the final version that we have here. The one thing that we both agreed to is the set current rate that we have that is paid in quarterly installments we were trying to, kind of bridge this gap that we set up, a set amount of hours, monthly or annually, that is going to be covered by that expense as paid, as remitted to the township. But the one thing that we agreed upon was it's going to be very hard managerially to track the different things that happen aside from the actual coverage. For instance, if there's a 2-person assignment and we happen to have 1 officer working on patrol, not 2, Lower Merion will provide backup for an alarm, a disturbance, a fight on the highway, and serious medical emergencies and auto accidents as well. So the thing that we agreed upon with that is it would be very hard to qualify, any additional hours incurred beyond a set amount to correlate that into an expense that could be agreed upon by the participating agencies. So I think what we're going to have to do, pursuant to the discussion myself and Mike McGrath had, and also I think that Mike McGrath and Ernie McNeely had, the township manager, as well as Matt West and I had for the borough, that we're going to have to look at this historically for the past 3 years and see where the ball lies, and then actually agree upon some type of set amount in terms of dollars annually for the coverage as provided. But, right now, I feel that we are well beyond scratching the surface. We're about to, to finalize this. And that's the only thing that we have to do. So I have some studies that I've done on the time. This is just an example that I did for the benefit of the committee. Now, I'm not going to chew up too much more time. I know the time is of the essence, but I wanted to make sure that everybody was updated and the process was transparent. And this is the latest update since I talked to the committee back on March the 3rd. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, John. So it sounds like you're very close and possibly at our business meeting, I guess, in the 3rd week of April, we might be in a position before Matt leaves us.
Yes, I'm confident that, Rob, that we can get to that point by Wednesday, April 21st, and have that finalized with Matt's signature before Friday, the 23rd.
Okay, great. Thank you again, John. And John, if you can stay with us for a minute, because we want to have a conversation, brief conversation, and then we'll take public comment, I guess, at 7:25. So we have about 4 minutes to discuss signs in the park. Now, I know that this discussion has started in infrastructure, and the rec board has brought a request for signs. But there's another piece of this. I'm thinking about signs for the mask ordinance that I think are needed in the parks. We have one by the library that I know of, but I think we need additional signs reinforcing the mask ordinance in the parks. So let's discuss maybe this piece since we don't have too much time. Bob?
Yeah, I'd appreciate a chance to just say a tiny bit about that. I think the signs that we have in our downtown train station area business district have been very effective and very successful in helping people understand the borough's ordinance around mask usage. And I think the way the administration, the way Matt and the staff of the borough have created those signs was really brilliant. And they're beautiful and they're effective, and they've really done a great job. And I think now that we're looking at spring and the opening of the basketball courts and the playgrounds, I think it would be really important that for us to make the same kind of have the same quality and visibility of signage in the playground area and the basketball courts areas as we have in our downtown. And I guess, Rob, that's the main thing that concerns me. So it doesn't come as a surprise to any of the users of those spaces when they're asked to wear masks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. And I think what we're talking about is temporary signs, because eventually this pandemic will be over. As opposed to permanent signs, which would list the rules, supported by the code, about, I don't know, when the parks are open and closed, that kind of thing. That's, I guess, a separate discussion.
Right, it's a different order of signage. I'm sorry, I thought you were asking about the specific to the wearing of masks and the pandemic ordinance, because that's the one that concerns me most. I mean, like just in terms of like, it's springtime now, people are coming outside, that we're not, that they're not caught flat-footed in not being faithful to the ordinances.
Yeah, I agree with that, Bob. Go ahead, Matt.
There is one right before you, there's the same sign as we have downtown as you walk into Candy Cane City in the park. We did have one near the entrance of the bleachers for the basketball courts, but that, I don't think it lasted a day before the vandals got to it. So we have not replaced that one because it was damaged beyond repair. And so we didn't want to go and put another sign out there, because while they're not really expensive, they're not cheap either. And so I like the idea of different signage. I think the one in front of Candy Cane City, that's still in really good shape, and I think it's still effective, but I do believe that we could use a different approach at the basketball courts. And
I have an idea about that, Matt, and I was wondering about maybe similar kind of similar graphic quality to the other signs that you've done, but maybe as a banner that's high enough, like say that it's high enough off the ground, or maybe it's hanging in some way that it's not really going to be vandalized as readily. Like maybe a banner, yeah, of some kind, or a couple of banners.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is banner might be, and maybe, yeah, a couple banners. I don't know if they're cheaper, they don't have to be giant, they could be smaller, but yeah, I was thinking the same thing that you were, just in regards to the signs.
Maybe it takes a cherry picker if you want to vandalize it, like you know.
Well, okay, so that's something that we could recommend as a committee, that we have an additional sign or two, you know, maybe in the form of banners.
Right. I mean, the banner is still hanging that says the courts are closed, right? That wasn't vandalized. I think it's more tempting maybe to, if you're skateboarding or doing something else, to like try and jump over a trifold. Maybe it was used for a skateboard trick. I don't know.
Having been there, done that. Yeah, I can relate to that.
Is that feasible? So there is a banner that says the courts are closed, so it could be maybe it just replaces that one or something.
Yeah, I think we can get creative with that. Let me see if we can come up with a creative solution. We've also been working with a local graphic designer with these signs also. You'll see that. I think you saw that when was it? The days are all blending together about the spring cleanup, that snazzy map that was circulated around that used my base map. But yeah, so I think there's a solution that we can come up with.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So we just have a couple minutes. Why don't we take public comment before our 7:30 meeting? So anyone from the public that would like to speak?
I would like to make a comment. Carol Marie Scanlon on Sabine Avenue. I want to let this committee know how busy our Sabine Park has been. It's really exciting to see how busy it is, that the kids are doing a great job, how clean the park is, thanks to our borough committee, which is really good. But still, the importance of adding those one-way signs, because as you say, you're talking 6 to 7 cars a day going the wrong way down the street. It varies. Some days it's more, some days it's less. But we are talking in front of a playground. So I would like to know how we can get to the top of the list. We had our petition signed of the neighbors that signed over. So, you know, what is the actual plan once you get it from the traffic safety to put different streets up a little higher on the food chain?
If you don't mind, Rob, I can take that. Yeah, that has also been forwarded to our traffic engineer. And that along with the price crossing signs are examples of why we need this policy in place, which has been explicitly forwarded. And the expectation is that the traffic engineer will have just about a fully sussed plan at the next infrastructure meeting. And I don't anticipate it taking much longer after that meeting for it to be implemented.
Thank you. And then with the signs, are you going to have signs that alert that it's no dogs at the park? Is that also on the list for the sign?
So that discussion is going to happen more in the infrastructure committee. But, you know, as Matt has pointed out to me, we need to be sure that our code is there to support whatever rules we're going to be posting in the park signs. So it will require the council to review that chapter of our code.
Yeah, if
So are the signs going up?
if you're looking for a
next
really
couple
quick
weeks?
read, if you're looking for a really quick read, go look at our Parks and Recreation Code. It's one page. It's easy. So we don't have a lot of restrictions for our parks and open space.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? All right, well, we will conclude this meeting so that we can move over to the council meeting. Thank you all.